Oh. Oh. Welcome to Meaningful Mornings. Be quiet. For those who are untrained, this makes them more noisy. My children are in Meaningful Mornings right now. They're listening to me. And when I say be quiet, they internalize that quite differently than those who are trained. Like all of you in our community, when you hear these words, be quiet, that's a upadesha. That's advice to tune into that which is valuable. So let us all be quiet right now. Stretch, inhale, open your eyes. You're all excited about stretching. Should I do that every morning? In Bhagavad Gita's chapter 1, Prince Arjuna comes to understand and appreciate how fear-filled he is. When one understands and appreciates this, one doesn't want to feel that way. So in chapter 2, he asks Sri Krishna, guide me to the greatest. The greatest feeling is to be fearless. How can one grow from fear to fearless? In chapter 3, the upadesha or advice is dedication. For an objective science, one does not need a role model. Think of a typical professor that you had. Did you treat her or him as a role model? Did you want to be like them? Think of the many professionals you come across in your life. Do you feel they're your role model? Do you want to be like them? In a subjective science, it is mandatory to have a role model to make this transition from external to internal growth. And that is why in chapter 4, the beginning is where Sri Krishna is sharing insights into an avatara or adapter. This is verses 1 through 10, that Sri Krishna is fearless. He's an icon of that. He and Prince Arjuna are in the same context, but Prince Arjuna is crying and Sri Krishna is smiling. And just visually look at the difference. Prince Arjuna is more protected in this chariot. Sri Krishna is more vulnerable, correct? As the driver. Prince Arjuna is allowed to carry weapons. Sri Krishna has made a promise that he will not use any weapons. So he is the role model. Prince Arjuna goes on to internally question, why are there, or how are there, differences in people's relationship to dedication? Why is it, how is it that some are working hard and smart to be fearless, and some are working less hard, less smart in being fearless. There are differences, but these differences should not be felt as divisions. One's evolution is personal. When you understand and appreciate that, this is a color system. When you don't understand and don't appreciate that, in other words, differences have become divisions, then that is a caste system. One has devolved that which is internal to become external. In verses 11 to 15, where all of these differences are highlighted, there is a difference in people's personalities. There is no difference in the presence behind those personalities. The more we evolve, the more we know we are more than a personality. We are presence. And Sri Krishna completes this sentiment, verses 11 through 15. In the last verse, he said, I taught leaders in the beginning. Remember in the first verse where he says, I taught the son who taught other leaders, and they followed. They followed what I taught, and they became fearless. Prince Arjuna, you are a leader. You have more responsibilities than your older brother, Raja Yudhishthira. So follow what I'm sharing. I'm following it. I feel this presence. You follow it. You feel this presence. Summarizing. This summary is ways for us to practice before we continue. Live like Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna is interdependent, which enables him to be independent. The one who is living interdependently is living less egotistically. Our ego plays games with us, and then we start to play games with others. When I'm living like Sri Krishna, I'm trying, then my focus is on not the ego, but evolution. I become more effective in all that I do because those mind games are not being played with myself or others. I was listening to Puja Swami Tejomayananda share that many have a BP problem. BP is casual for blood pressure. Now, I don't have a blood pressure problem, but I'm told it just makes you feel very uncomfortable. Yes, for those who can relate to this. But he said, we all have an EP problem, an ego problem, ego pressure. Our ego pressures us so much that we think and speak and act in ways that are manipulative. Games, right? We continue. Verse 16. This is a famous verse because it triggers a whole new thought process. Shri Krishna can read our minds. He can read Prince Arjuna's mind. So he's verbalizing our question. Kim karma kima karmeti kavayopyatra mohitaha tatte karma pravakshami yajnatva mokshase shubhat. I'm translating. Kim karma, what is action? Kim akarma iti, and what is inaction? Kavayoho api atra mohitaha, even kavis. Kavi technically means poets. The implication is those who are wise. Even the wise are confused about what is action and what is inaction. Te, meaning to Prince Arjuna, meaning to us, tat karma pravakshami. I will tell you about what is action and what is inaction. Yet nyatva, when you know this, moksha se ashubhat, you will be freed from. Ashubhat means inauspiciousness, which means more deeply, ego. That's the translation. And I'll say it 1,000 more times that Sri Krishna is a master teacher, because Prince Arjuna's fear, he feels that if he acts, this will create sin. And Sri Krishna is guiding him that if you don't act, that will create sin. Every thought of Prince Arjuna is connected in Sri Krishna's response. Some insights. I'll start with reading Pujaswami Chinmayananda's commentary. An action in itself cannot be considered either as good or bad. It is the motive behind it which determines the quality of the action. Now visualize this carefully. Just as the beauty of a fruit is not the last word for its edibility, but it depends upon its contents, so too, a beautiful action in itself could be a poisonous act. Have you all seen a beautiful, healthy-looking peach before? Apricot. And then you eat it, and how does it taste? I forgot that word. What's that word where it's very pasty and the texture is not juicy? Anyone who knows that, please share in the chat. But you've experienced that, correct? Externally, I want to buy this. But internally, yes, mealy, good. Nobody wants to have more of that. So what Sri Krishna is encouraging all of us to do is to not live life on the surface. Do not live superficially. We should live as poets. If you know a poet, and many of you are poets, I read your writing. The way that you feel for nature or a humanity or an experience, you're not feeling this superficially, but you're feeling this authentically, deeply. Sri Krishna is reminding us that fear is not external. Fear is internal. And if one changes their intention, then one will change from being fear-filled to being fearless. We cannot know another's intention. Do you know everyone's intention when they interact with you? They can look good outside and they can speak gentle words, but inside they could be thinking very negatively about you. I find with a lot of seekers is that their context is solid. But as someone who's trying to get to know himself and perhaps others too for the past 15 years, I can sense that insecurity immediately. Lots of security outside, no security inside. You interact with others and they may not know your intention, but you know your intention. And that's what Sri Krishna is encouraging us to lift your intention to be less deservership oriented. That's the teaching of chapter 4. And a very practical way to live this is don't seek your validation outside of yourself. That is deservership. Look at me, look at me, look at me, compliment me, even criticize me, but validate me. This applies to all of us, no? I'll share more. From inspiration to application. Your recent application was to begin your new year, Deepavali, by being more cheerful. November 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 4 days. We're approaching 100 hours. Have you been more cheerful? We gave up, Vivekji. We'll try next year. We'll wait till the next Deepavali. This is our community sankalpa. This means we have to smile more when we see each other because we're friends. Here's your application for this morning. It's getting colder for most of us. It's getting darker for most of us externally, which means we're going to be inside and we're going to be in screens more. I'd once written the social media sutras. And one of those sutras I'm reading to you is, distract the mind with reading. Distract the mind with reading. Our minds cannot be focused all the time. Some are thinking our minds cannot be focused anytime, not all the time, anytime. So what do? We distract ourselves by reading that which makes us more distracted. Distract the mind with reading means read that which will help you in a systematic way to be more focused. So your application is I want you to make a regular practice to read the reflections from Meaningful Mornings on our website. That is your application. Instead of going through a Facebook thread or reading the news, read people's reflections. A reflection from Saloni recently was, Meaningful Mornings is the brightest spot of my day. It's the sun that never sets. What a reflection. That sun is as if going to set, but reflections don't have to set, correct? And I was reading Ranjani's reflection also about how this has changed her life the most. She started with a casual relationship with Meaningful Mornings, but nothing has changed her more than these reflections. Okay, you'll follow that sutra. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be happiness.